Hey everybody, welcome to another stream of the Art Lounge Alley. I'm your host. I decided to start out this week with different kind of music. A little bit of blues. But I'm going to be continuing still from where I left off last week, which is right here. Now, I don't know how long I'm going to last with these blues. For example, I'm not a fan of this one. But I figured it is something new. So just to start out the week, I'm going to do a review of like what we went over last week. For those of you who are just tuning in for the very first time, this is what I was doing. It was the do's and don'ts of drawing. So in this example, if you guys guessed that this is the do and that is the don't, you're absolutely right. The difference between the two, and it's very subtle, is the finger placement. So as you could see here, they're perfectly lined up and they're all going in the same direction. Now if you take a look at your hand, right, if you make a fist and take a look at the pinky, you're going to notice that it's not actually going off the palm like you see it here. It's actually going inwards. And its direction is the opposite of the index finger. So they're going towards each other at both ends, basically. And that's what's present over here. So this is the correct form. This is the incorrect form. That's a little bit of detail that's important to note. And it could actually make your fist, like whenever you're drawing somebody holding anything really that could really break the drawing. It could give the viewer a sense of like something is off. I think a lot of people, even if they're not illustrators, even if they're not artists, they still have this sense, the ability to notice when something is a little bit off. If it's anatomical, if it's related to anatomy, let's just say, it's just something that they're conscious of, like instinctively, so as an illustrator, you want to be able to draw in ways that it's convincing, that it's going to keep the viewer glued to whatever it is that you're drawing, whether it's a figure, whether it's a comic book or painting, whatever it is. So these are just little things here and there that could really help. So in the next example, this would be a do and that is a don't. For multiple reasons. Well, first one is it just looks very stiff. If you were to try to hold a cup like that and just drink from it, or just in general maneuver the cup in this sort of position, it looks kind of awkward and stiff. Whereas this has a more of a natural vibe to it. The glass is leaning up against the palm. It's a little bit easier to hold. So that's just another. It's like the hand envelops the cup. It's not just like holding it at a distance from itself. So that's just something to note there. Add a little bit more fluidity to your drawing by paying attention to little things like that. These right here are just exercises, examples of how the hand looks depending on the position of the object that it's holding. Specifically this object, the brush, something that is a little bit more narrow and widens out at the base. But really it's just like understanding finger placement and the relationship between the fingers. And just different angles. And the more you do it, the more you do drawings of the hand in many different angles, many different perspectives, the better it's going to be for you. You'll have a better understanding of it three-dimensionally, as opposed to just knowing it in one position, let's say just this one. But if you do it in many different all around, you'll get a great understanding of it. Another way of improving your drawing and having a better understanding of anatomy or any part of the human figure really is, I'm going to say, sculpting. It's something that you could do for the time being while you're learning. You could do it simultaneously. While you're learning how to draw certain features, you could also tackle clay. It's a lot of fun, I think. It's not expensive. It's very inexpensive. And at the end, once you dedicate the time for it, it might take you a couple of weeks. It might take you a month. It might take you 2 or more. But at the end, after you actually get to a point where you feel really satisfied, you will have yourself a model that you can use in any direction that you'd like. You can have it in any direction of the light source as well. You can move the light source around to get a better understanding of what the face looks like in certain angles of the light source. You can change the head and its position to understand it better in all sorts of perspectives. So it's time well invested. You're going to get a good understanding of whether it's the head, the hand, whatever it is that you want to work on using clay. You'll have a better understanding of it 3-dimensionally, as well as have a model to work from, to draw. But yeah, just that idea of understanding something 3-dimensionally really allows you to eventually move it around and have it in any direction you'd like from your imagination. That's what you're doing with all these examples. You're building your visual library. You're building your understanding of any of the features, whether it's the hand, whether it's the lips, mouth, nose, ears, whatever it is. You draw it in all sorts of angles so that you could get a 3-dimensional understanding in your mind's eye, in your memory. And then you could recall it whenever you need it. So it's really important to continuously practice, the same way as you had to continuously practice the alphabet, right, in order to remember it and be able to recite words when you read, recite letters, that is, when you read. All right, so moving on to the next do and don't page. Right here we got don't try to put in detail from just like a quick sketch of the hand, or pretty much anything really. The most useful part about this is setting parameters. Just doing a quick gesture drawing without going into detail. As you can see here, there's some places where creases are made, nails are, so on and so forth. You don't want to do that. The most important step is to just give yourself some basis, something to work from. Let's say you want to fit it into only this section. It helps to just do a quick little parameter sort of drawing. You want to set the parameters for the drawing itself, and then from there you could start defining it more, giving it more shape. But most importantly, if you use this block form to construct it, you'll get the perspective of whatever it is that you're drawing correct. And for those of you who have missed out, you guys can always go back to the previous streams talking about all these different topics by heading over to the video section and filtering it based on collection. And then you will see folders open up for any of the streams, and you guys could access it, catch up on old streams, discover new ones that you haven't seen. You could also get access to the highlights folder, where I have all the special streams throughout the Art Lounge Alley. You guys can check those out as well. But yeah, here it really becomes helpful to use the block form for those reasons, for you to be able to draw the hand in perspective and have it correct, have it look correct. For example, if you were to draw the thumb, the placement of another very important detail, the nail, you could see it has to be on the surface. It can't be on the side of the finger. So this block form kind of helps you distinguish these forms. So these planes rather. So I'm going to just give you guys a brief understanding of what I mean when I say planes. For those of you who are new, this would be considered a plane. This is a plane, the front of the face, the side of the face, the back of the head, that's another plane. Then there are smaller planes that you could pay attention to, which is the forehead. That's one plane. The side of the nose, that's another. The middle section of the nose, that's another plane. The other side of the nose is a plane. There's this section right here, that's also a plane. So just visually to understand what that term really means and what it's referring to, to give you guys a better idea. There's also, let me see if I could quickly open up to that. So this right here is an example of planes as well. The front of the face, that's a plane. That's another plane on the side of the face here. And as I mentioned on the clay figure, there's multiple little planes. There's one right here, as you can see. There's another one right above the forehead, in between the eyes, the bridge of the nose, the side of the nose, as you've seen before, the middle section. So there are many little planes, so just surface areas that you can understand as being sort of flat. So as I mentioned, this section right here is also a plane. So it allows you to just understand at what point something turns to a different direction. So this would be the front plane, and then it would turn to the side plane right here. Alright, so just to give you guys that understanding, and as well as this example to show that the box form you could use for more than just the hand or the body, let's just say. You could also use it for the head. You could use it for a car if you're trying to build a car, right? If you're trying to draw a car, the foundation of it is a box form, and then from there you can build into it to make it look perspectively correct. So it's a really useful skill. It's a really useful approach, when you are having a bit of a difficult time trying to draw in perspective. You can always resort to using the box form to help you construct it better. Alright, so this is a do, that's a don't. You don't want to start putting in details into a very light sketch. You want to start off by constructing it. And this is temporary. Just the same way as it was temporary for you to recite the alphabet over and over again, you eventually learn to read without having to recite it, right? So this right now is your alphabet. These little tools, these little approaches you use as you continue to develop and grow and get better. And it takes a lot of dedication to it. It takes a lot of practice. You have to devote yourself every day and always section out a block of time for drawing every day in order to stay in the flow, in order to continuously remind yourself of the things and refresh basically what you've learned the previous day and build on top of it. So that really does require you to dedicate yourself every day. I want to say it's similar to going to the gym. If you go to the gym once a week, you're not going to see any results. It's going to be very, very, very tiny bit of results, if any. If you go to the gym 3-4 times a day, 3-4 times a week, you're bound to see some results in the long run. So this kind of works the same way. If you're doing it daily, if you're putting in the time, you're bound to see results a lot faster than if you were to just do it once a week. That's just going to be a lot more difficult. But if all you can do is one day a week, you'll eventually want to do it more. So it's not a lost cause if that's all the time that you have at the moment. You'll eventually get inspired to block out more time specifically for drawing. Alright, so moving on to the next do and don't. As you guys can see, this is a pretty obvious one. I want to say don't round off the corners on everything. Especially where the joints are. As you can see, it looks like bubble hands basically. You want to avoid that. You could see how there are corners depending on the joint area, where the joint is. That's present. Knuckles, where the knuckles are, that's also present on what it's here. You could see here as well. It's the same idea. It's just such a smooth surface area. That's not really the case. So just simply that little bit of detail transforms the drawing to look more realistic and believable. Okay, moving on to another one, which is this is a don't and this is a do. Now, just to take a look at it real quick, try to find what the difference really is here. If you guys have guessed it, it's within the thumb. So in one drawing, the thumb has its connected section right here, this little pillow section, this little spongy area on your on your palm, that is connected to your thumb. So don't exclude it when you are trying to draw the hand in, whether it's closing or if you're trying to include the thumb. Don't forget about the section that jots out of the hand. So that's really the difference between the two. All right, moving on real quick to the next one. If you guessed that, this is a don't because everything is straight, like the size of the fingers are exactly the same. The size of the fingers are the same. As you can see, they're going straight across. At the base of the fingers, the section right here, it's also straight. Whereas here, you could see, and even on my hand, you could see there's curvature to it. There's curvature at the base, and there's also curvature at the top, with the fingers varying in size. The middle finger being the longest, index finger second, ring finger third. Sometimes the index finger and the ring finger are about the same size. Maybe the ring finger might be a little bit longer. I think it varies. But study your hand, look at that. But what they all have in common, regardless of that, is the curvature to the top section and the base of the fingers. So that is a do, that is a don't. And finally, before I move on to more examples of drawing hands, we got this example right here, which is basically similar to this. You could see that in this example, which is a don't, the knuckles are all straight. They're going straight across, no curvature to them, whereas here, there's curvature to the knuckles. So that's a really important thing when it comes to the fingers. Always remember the base is curved, the fingers are curved, and so are the knuckles. It forms more of like a cup shape. It's not as flat as you would imagine or you would think. But best way, as I always mention, to learn is through repetition, through study, looking at all different types of hands, drawing them in all different types of perspectives. So with that quick summary, I'm going to go back to drawing more hands. Just as soon as I find a good page within the sketchbook. This is an old sketchbook, and I'm just going back to it to fill up pages that I just missed out. I guess I'll just go back to this one and fill up as much as I can. Okay, so continuing with drawing hands, and you guys are going to see the same process that I was talking about before. What are some of the benefits of using the box form? How to start out the drawing. So as I was saying before, it's important to start out with a quick sketch to make sure the drawing fits within the section that you intended to be in. So I'm just using general like big shapes, not really spending too much time. These are the two fingers that are holding the ball. These are the two fingers that are curved. So I'm not going into detail. I'm just kind of giving this like general shape for them. So as you can see, I started out with the rectangle shape, kind of. I mean, it's not really a rectangle, it's in perspective. I want to say it's like a skewed cup shape. But it's a lot easier, it's a lot more simple than having to start out with a real complex line drawing of the hand. Alright, so that's down. Now, I got it in three-dimensional form. And I'm going to start dividing that section into 4 sections for the fingers. So you guys are going to see me construct the fingers using this block form. And now that it's in block form, I'm going to start defining certain features more. I'm going to start curving out areas that look a little bit too cubic. While adding little details, like the knuckles, for example, to start rendering the drawing more realistically. Now, some of you, if you remembered, there was a don't that said, don't round off. There is like a fine line, really. There are certain things that you do want to, like including the knuckles, including the joints, and then rounding them off accordingly, as opposed to just completely removing them, like removing the knuckles, removing the joints. That's really the key difference between the two. In one instant, you're removing those features. In another instant, you're just refining them to look more realistic, to look better. Now I'm going to start forming shadows, and you guys are going to see how it all starts to blend in and look more natural and realistic. It's a little bit more difficult to erase these lines because I did want it to be visible for you guys. But I think shading is going to help. And also it's going to show you guys how the box form comes into play in this instant as well. So as you can see, I'm just shading the surface area. You know, since the light source is coming from the right side directly, the top part of the hands, the top part of the hand, or the fingers rather, they don't really catch much light. And since this finger is protruding out more than any other, it's casting a shadow on the index finger. So as you can see, it's like partial, there's partial shadow form on the index finger. I'm not going to shade areas that aren't catching that much light dark, because I did notice it like in these examples here. The shading turned out a little too dark for areas that aren't really in shadow. Just going to give it a light coat. Perhaps this line right here is a little too present. I don't know, y'all. I'm kind of not feeling this station. I'm gonna let it go for like 2 more songs, and if it still continues to bum me out, I'm probably gonna switch over. There's definitely great blues out there, but this isn't the kind of blues that I had in mind, actually. Like, this isn't bad. I'm gonna say this is alright. But as you guys could see, you know, how it really turned out to look a lot more realistic than what it looked like at the beginning, right? Or I want to say like towards the block form phase. And that was just because, once again, the block form really allowed me to start shading in areas, planes, that aren't in shadow. It's a little bit... or are in shadow. So I'm going to say, you know, it's a little bit easier than as opposed to like not having those lines there, those guidelines there. I think it's a faster process if they're included when you're trying to shade. I'm gonna add these lines for the baseball. I think it's interesting how just those little lines that I add transforms it. You guys immediately have this idea, oh, it must be a baseball. The magic of drawing. The illusion of lines. So cool. Not putting too many highlights around the knuckles, just leaving a little bit of light there, because they are protruding out. Alright, I'm gonna move on to the next one. I'm gonna do the same thing here, though it might be a little bit different. Using big shapes once again to define the fingers, the palm, the hand. The ball in the middle. I'm also going to divide it into 4 sections and construct it from there. Now, as I mentioned in the do's and don'ts, the pinky is going in, as you can see in this example as well. It's clutching the ball. So I'm kind of drawing through the ball. You know, I'm drawing the fingers behind it as I would imagine they would form in order to like grab around it. And that also ensures accuracy in placement. You know, because sometimes, what's a quick one? Let's say there's like a cape, right? And you're drawing the legs. You might end up drawing them at really incorrect looking angles because you haven't really drawn through. Like, for example, this is the ankle of the foot. This is where the foot is. But if you were to draw, continuing to draw that ankle, from that ankle up to where the pelvic area is, you would see that the angle of the ankle isn't correct. Like, this is the other foot coming up. So because there's like something that's obstructing your vision of the continuation of those lines, it ends up making it look incorrect. So it's important to draw through in order to make sure that the end point even though it's not visible in the final product, or it shouldn't be visible in the final drawing, is that it's anatomically correct and it's proportionate, to whatever it is that you're drawing. So yeah, in this example, it will be the legs, right? Just making sure, and as you follow those lines up, it's just not going to look correct. It's going to look weird. So that's why it's important to draw through the object. Don't miss that opportunity. Or don't try to skip it in a way, because it's going to just make your drawing look bad in the long run. Or you might not even know exactly what's off. That's a way to kind of correct it. So just to define a little bit more, that's the cape, that's the ankle. You would see, like, if you were to bring up all those lines, the legs would just cross each other. Like this line going up, further up, this line going further up, and then they would meet at a point where it just wouldn't make much sense. It wouldn't look right for the body. So the pose is off, and that's why it's helpful. Like in this case, as you could see, the ball is solid. You shouldn't be able to see the fingers through the other side, but for the sake of making sure that they come out proportionate and they come out in proper form, I'm drawing through to attain it. And that's a useful tool. You might not always need it. You might get eventually used to, let's say, drawing something knowing that it looks correct, anatomically correct. It looks proportionate. There will be times where you might not, you might come up with a challenging new perspective that you're drawing from, or something that you haven't drawn before, and you don't really know like what the proper perspective of it would be. So it's a good tool to have, similar to using the box form. It's another tool to ensure accuracy, to get really good results. I'm going to draw this ball a lot bigger, as it should be. Okay, there's still some lead left. And this is, it is intimidating in a way to draw like this, because you get so many lines, right? There's so much going on. It gets a little bit confusing. Your vision gets a little bit tangled. You're like, I don't know which lines I'm looking at anymore, and it looks a little bit chaotic. But take your time and approach it strategically a bit. Start out, as I mentioned, as I think it's the most important thing about for beginners, is drawing lightly. So approach it strategically. Start out with like a really light drawing, and that way, as you start drawing other parts that would need this sort of thing, like see-through sort of X-ray vision, let's just say, sections that need that X-ray vision, once you start forming those lines, it's going to push the previous line work back. You're going to start pressing a little bit harder, not a lot harder, not 100% harder than the previous, but just slightly. Take it to the next level and make the line work a little bit darker. You want to keep it light enough so that you can actually erase them and they're not going to make your drawing look dirty. And then that will allow you to distinguish the lines. You could start seeing, okay, well, these are coming out more, and those are the new lines. I could continue on with that. And of course, it's just practice. You eventually start to see the lines that you want to see. This approach, along with the box form, has come to my rescue multiple times. There's been times where I decided to do a new project and I would take on like a challenging perspective, perspective that I haven't really tackled. And those approaches, those strategies really came into use. Like, I started to actually form more and more of the perspective correctly because I was depending on those tools to guide me through. So it's absolutely worth putting time in, and it's going to be frustrating. You're not going to, as I mentioned very frequently, you're not always going to get the best results immediately, but just know you're a step closer to getting better. You just have to dedicate yourself to it. And of course, if you guys have any moments of struggle or moments of frustration, post your comments. Talk about that here, and I can offer you guys some advice, some perspective, and hopefully help you stay motivated. And I think a lot of other viewers would also appreciate it, knowing that it's not just me that's going through that. It's just something that's really common when it comes to the learning process in general. I think a lot of us, we look at something and we get so inspired by the results, or the process coming from people who have been drawing for a really long time. And it looks so cool and looks so fun, right, as they're doing it, because they're doing it with such ease that you want to sit down and be able to do that. But then when you sit down, you realize, like, oh, I'm really struggling with this. I'm really not understanding it. I don't know how they're doing it. It becomes slightly unmotivating, knowing that you got a long way to go. But you have to, just like anything that's worthwhile, if you put in the time, you will eventually get there. And as I mentioned frequently, enjoy the process. Just enjoy drawing. Just enjoy the challenge, of developing the skill. And don't focus so much on the comparison and the result. And that will allow you to have the freedom to be able to just continue to practice, as opposed to just constantly worrying about the results and worrying about not attaining the same results as somebody who's been doing it for a really long time. And the future you is going to thank you. It's going to be like, oh, good job, May, for sticking through it and really pushing through, because now I'm able to do something I wasn't able to do way before. That's just kind of how it goes, for me. Just looking back, there were moments where I was like, oh, this isn't really getting me the results that I want. I'll still keep pushing through it, and then I'll reach a new level, and then upon reflection, I'm like, oh, a couple of months ago I wasn't able to do this. Now it's not even an issue, and I'm thinking about something else, you know. And that's just how it's going to continue to be, you know. Even once you get to a point where you're getting really good results, you're still going to want to take it to the next level and learn something new. So you're going to come across that scenario again, you know. So if you're familiar with that, you'll feel a lot easier going through the motions of improving. All right, everybody, I'm going to end the stream for figure drawing basics for today. I'm going to be back tomorrow, same time and place, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here at the Art Lounge Alley on Twitch. If you guys enjoy this content, make sure you remember to hit the like and subscribe button. They're both greatly appreciated. And stick around. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and I'm going to be back for drawing comics. Hello everyone, welcome to Drawing Comics. This is the Art Lounge Alley. I'm your host, and this is drawing Conan the Barbarian. Amazing work by one of my favorite artists, John Buscema. This is where I left off last week. And I'm getting okay results. I'm okay with it. I guess I'm just kind of nitpicking things because I really do want it to be as exact as possible. And I'm noticing certain things here and there where I'm like, well, that's off and this is off, and I'm wondering whether I should just continue to go on with what's on paper. It's not so much about drawing exactly like John Buscema. It's more about training the eye, taking it to the next level, noticing little details that I overlooked before. I think I'm pretty much done with this panel. There isn't really that much there. Just gotta define these rocks. Say the immediate mistake that I made was making this rock way too narrow. Should be wider, which goes to show why this section is a little too wide. Just trying to juggle all these things. Like, I want to be able to move on to the next panel and get closer and closer towards actually finishing this entire comic book. I'm gonna say I'm halfway through, as you could see from the stapling of this comic book, that I'm like halfway done. I'm gonna say it's a little bit more than halfway, because some of these panels I already drew before. If you guys are noticing the music, I wanted to do something different. There's been points where there was music that was just being recycled. Just wanted to change things up. I'm staying hopeful. I want to give this station a chance. There's a couple of new things coming your way, along with Gil Elfgren's continuation. Been really having a blast, streaming this. I really didn't expect it to last as long as it has, actually. But every Friday I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, along with that, there's going to be some new material coming your way. And I'm also looking forward to it because something I haven't watched in a really long time either. So it'd be cool to like revisit and think about, because it is something from the past. It's in history, you know, it's not modern day, but the things that are being talked about still apply to this day. Which is so frustrating, you know, to think of this, to think that we're just basically just going in circles. You know, a lot of it is political, like the same exact problem, same boring, you know, ring around of like terrible gun laws, you know, not terrible education systems, people not getting paid well, you know, economic disparity, like all that stuff still present. Any era that you like revisit, it's like, I'm telling you, the only way to change things is by protesting. That's the most direct way we can see change, because anything else, they can bullshit. They could just lie, they could extend, they could pretend like they're doing something. Oh, we tried. You know, I guess we'll wait next 4 years. You guys are gonna have to like waste 4 years of your life. And hopefully we'll do things right the next time around. Next time comes around, oh damn, we didn't do it right. You know, I guess we'll have to wait again 2 more years. You know, they don't care. They're just collecting your taxes and pretending as if though they're getting stuff done. You know, there's definitely people who are genuinely interested in seeing progress, but they're being gaslit as well. You know, they're just being pushed off to the side, whether it's through intimidation, all sorts of stuff. So if people collectively, like there's billions of people, and it's just amazing to me that billions of people will complain about the same exact things, but won't come together to like protest. Like if there's 1,000 people even, I'm going to say, at the White House, what are they going to do? They're going to start killing citizens? No. You know, again, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is that we're not a third world country, and we know how to be civilized about differences to some extent. But especially when it comes to that area. Yeah, so if people are protesting and there's like 1,000 people every day, they're going to have to address it. They're going to see that there's like this economic upheaval. People are really pissed. And that's going to be more and more problematic for them. So they're going to have to address it. Now, the next thing that comes to mind is like, well, what are they going to address, right? You're going to have specific demands, which is what a lot of these protests lack. Like, they'll just say, like, bands off our body. But, like, what do you want them to do? You know, if you hold up signs saying, enact this bill, you know, we want bill so-and-so, and just keep demanding it, that's something that they can actually do. You know, like, you have something specific that they're supposed to address, and they're supposed to enact, you know. Something I talk about very frequently, which is the idea of lowering how many hours we work. You know, just think about it. Like, why does it have to be 8 hours? Is there some sort of like intrinsic quality about that? Or is it just corporate greed? And if it is corporate greed, why are we enabling it? We're the ones who are making them rich. You know, we as people, we as employees, we as consumers, we're the ones who are making them rich. So if we all come together on it and we say, like, look, we want to enjoy our life. We don't want to keep making you rich while you keep robbing us and making the economy worse and making our life worse. You know, sucking out all the time that we have while not even paying us well. Like, we've had it. Why are we putting up with this? You know, if people were to come together and do that, no matter how many companies, they're all gonna suffer for it. They're all gonna take a huge hit. They're gonna lose a business because people aren't gonna want to shop from them anymore. That's like the biggest blow that they could get. Don't shop at those companies. Don't give them business. And I think, especially the new generation, you know, being aware, having alternatives. You know, if you don't like the business, like I still see people using Spotify, for example, even after their racism that they supported, with that whole like Joe Rogan thing that happened, where he just kept on saying the N-word over and over again. It just seemed like he wanted to use it. You know, there was absolutely nothing that called for it or necessary. And he said a lot of other ignorant stuff and spread all sorts of false information, and people are still, who aren't really pro that, are still using that app. I think if more people got in the trend of like saying, hey, if you as a company are going to start making things worse, we're not going to support you. You know, I switched over to Apple Music. You know, I was like, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to enable them and think they could do whatever they want, because that's one instant. You might not, let's say it might not be important, right, for you, let's just say, which is absurd. But if you enable them to feel like as if though they could say or do or, you know, enable whoever they feel like, or not even care about any of that stuff, they're going to do worse things. You know, they're going to start doing a lot more problematic stuff. And we just need companies, like we need competition, so that when people don't like the business practice of one company, let's say they start enabling racism, they start enabling exploitation, or they're known for enabling sex traffickers, let's just say, you know, just being indifferent to all that stuff is the reason why things start to go more and more south. You know, they just get worse and worse and worse, because they're noticing like, oh, no, nobody cares, nobody's batting an eye to this, I could do this. It's our indifference, and a lot of our indifference comes from the fact that we're just so overworked. You know, that people are so irritated from their day, or exhausted, or just like don't even want to bother with any other problems, which goes back to the idea of like how much you're working, right? If you're working all day, 8 hours, well, really you're working 15 hours. You know, you're not getting up early in the morning and taking, you know, either driving for a half hour, 40 minutes, an hour, or taking public transportation for fun. That's because you're going to that company. So really that's part of the job. Then coming back home, the same thing, you know, and then having to eat, you know, and having to just take care of your basics, showering, eating, just unwinding for a little bit. Let's just say it's already 8:30. You know, you come back home around like what, 6 o'clock, you get out at 5, you get home at like 6. You unwind, let's say, for half an hour at 6:30, you make some food, 7:30, unless you're extremely fast at making food, you know, it's already 7:30 by the time you eat. It's like 8:30. So what, you got like 2 hours left until you gotta go to sleep and do the same exact thing 5 days straight. Of course you're going to be irritated. Of course you're not going to care to hear like what the current problems are, you know, what companies exploiting who and what, and you're not going to want to band with those people. You know, you're just too irritated from the day. And that's exactly, it's systematic. It is absolutely systematic. It's done on purpose for those specific reasons. It allows all these it allows exploitation. It enables exploitation. So people have to wisen up about that and realize, like, hey, I want my time. You're not even paying me. It's one thing if they were to do it and then pay you well, but it's not even that. So they're extracting all your time, and on top of that, they're saying, too bad, we're not even going to help you pay rent. We're just going to collect all your hard work and, take more money out of your paycheck so that our paycheck is going to be bigger. It's extremely toxic. It's a really nasty, shitty system. It's a monetary system that's meant for exploitation. And things are going to keep going in this cycle. They're going to keep on same problems, shootings, drugged up people having problems and taking it out on others, creating more unstable kids and families, and then more horrific things are going to happen, and people are always going to be like, why are there these problems? That's why. Because we're not doing anything about it. We're not coming together as people. We're not demanding change. And voting, that's still something that I'm going to do, but can't rely on that. It's one of those things where the more politicians they enact, the more corrupt it's going to get. The problem isn't the government, it's who's in it, who's running it. So if we don't come together and demand change and demand the right people to be in place, that's the whole point of protests, is to create problems. It's not supposed to be like this, fun little thing that's happening on the side while everybody's continuing to do what they do on the daily basis. No, it's supposed to create problems. That's the entire purpose of why protests are around. They're not supposed to be an entertainment, a fun time. It's there to give people the opportunity to say, hey, we're not happy with your work. Like, we voted you in, we wanted you to take care of the economy, you made promises and none of them are coming to fruition, and the economy is getting worse. Start putting in effort. And notice how it's always the fascists, that the Republicans who are finding ways to worm their way out of or into something, while Democrats are like, well, we can't do anything right now. I guess we're just, stuck for another 4 years. Meanwhile, Republicans are figuring out all sorts of ways to, like, avoid this, avoid that, get this person kicked out of the one of the chambers, extend this, extend that law, procrastinate this bill, that bill. Like, they're always figuring it out. Meanwhile, Democrats are like, I don't know, I guess I don't know. Whoops. So if they're not willing to do anything, we got to do stuff as people. And that's the most, I think, effective way. Direct action, direct demands. Voting is like indirect demands. They'll hear it out, they're like, okay, but we're still gonna do things our way. Whereas this creates problems, and it tells them, like, if you don't meet these demands, we're gonna just keep creating these problems. Your profits are gonna go down. Your businesses are gonna suffer because of it. And you're gonna tank. And people did that in the 1800s. They shut down the economy. They made their demands, they weren't being heard, and they shut the economy down. And then eventually we got 8 hours. That's the history of 8 hours. Before, it was 11 to 15 hours, or 11 to 13 hours, I'm going to say, was the average work day. That's how exploitive it's been. So capitalism has been doing it for years, for centuries. it's because of the people and demand from the people directly that things started to change, that we ended up having humane hours and people getting paid livable wages for some time until they got exploited again. And there was a period where there was comfort, and that generation was basically pacified. And the generation that protested and figured out how to do it ended up becoming too old to do anything about it. And what was left? A generation of pacified people. So we got to bring that up again. We got to create that generation that stirs things up and really starts to create problems for all these fascists and sociopaths who are just like, I don't care, I'm going to exploit whoever, however. A lot of us aren't happy, and I think people are just, instead of actually trying to do something about it, they start to conform to it and start developing like sociopathic behaviors and acting like Nazis, basically. That's not a solution. That's not a way to go about it. That's exacerbating and repeating the same problems over and over and over again. But yeah, just like, having not caring is just not gonna resolve anything. It's gonna just make things worse. And they want you to be apathetic. It's perfect for them. That's what they encourage. That's what they talk about for, that's what they spread as well. It is a cult. It's a cult that wants people brainwashed and stupid. And they have people who contribute towards the cult by spreading these kind of behaviors. And some people are just that way, and the way that they feel better about it is by making other people think the way that they do. They're so apathetic, they don't care about anything, and they just, if they make friends, they just spread that behavior and mood to others, like, oh, it's all pointless anyways, those types. They'll come up with all sorts of excuses so they don't have to actually do anything. And they don't have to feel guilty for being apathetic. Or pretend like they're not. Complicit. And I also think that it's not just the people. It's also people who have a lot of money as well, who consider themselves to be liberal. Like, it's up to them as well to start creating the businesses that should be. They can't expect politicians to do it. They have to champion these new businesses that are progressive, that pay people a living wage, that deal with distribution companies and so on and so forth, that are aligned with the same model, with the same perspective. Getting into that and really starting to create these competitive businesses, work environments, all sorts, because they're the ones who have that influence, connection, the money to get things going, to get things moving. But instead, they're just kind of sticking to what they've been doing. Or they're just on the sideline saying, go, do it. Or they're brainwashed by people who are like, well, you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps, whatever that garbage is, while they systematically make things incredibly difficult. Spitefully so, And of course they're like rich and influential, and they're probably like, oh, well, I guess, yeah. Without really realizing that there's more at play than just opportunities and how far people want to take things. There's a lot more going on than that. I mean, just the idea that during the pandemic, when it first hit, and we didn't know what it was, that there were companies that were just saying, well, just go back to work. Go back and, catch it, spread it. Why? Because we want more profits. Like, we don't know what this is. We don't know where it's coming from. We don't know how deadly it is or whatever, but we want you to go back to work, catch it, spread it to your kids, have those kids spread it to other kids, and then, kill yourselves, basically. Why? Because we want more profits. Like, hey, can you extend unemployment benefits until we figure out what's going on, until there's, like, vaccines out? No. You're going to tell me that's democracy? You're going to tell me that this is a anti-fascist nation? That's fascist. That's extremely, the same exact thing. Those were the gas chambers, basically. They were telling you to march to the gas chamber. It was just that it took on a different form rather than them, being there. They're just telling you to, and people like zombies are like, okay, we go back, catch the disease, spread it around. When it was worldwide, it wasn't just one state, and it wasn't a rumor. Like, internationally, everywhere it was happening, they still wanted people to go in and catch this virus. So what's the difference between that and telling people to go to the gas chamber? We got a serious Nazi problem on our hands, and I think people have to really understand that and to create these protests, create these problems demanding that change and more. This isn't what grandparents fought for. This isn't what your grandparents died for. They weren't like, okay, let me just go out there, get PTSD, lose all sorts of things, limbs, lives, loved ones, so that it could all come back. And people would be complacent with it and fine. That's awful. It's awful to think about. We have to get them out. Get them out of the voting process, get them out of the government, enact more progressives, and also demand as people to tell them, like, hey, when you just stop putting in effort, when you stop researching ways to attain goals that we need, we're going to boot you out. We have to set that example. We have to, that's the purpose of the protest, to show that the people will come together and they'll boot you out for what you chose to ignore. We've been making these demands for years, and they're going in one ear out the other. And it's not just Republicans. There's plenty of Democrats, quote unquote, who are actually just like Republicans. They're just in disguise. They're wearing a blue tie instead of a red one. But yeah, all this, I'm just talking about how it's been the same thing, generation for generation, the same exact problem. I think people are getting tired of it. I'm getting tired. I think it's ridiculous. There are people who are protesting in countries with much worse conditions. That's the part that really is irritating. There are places like Iran, for example, where sexism is 10 times worse. There's people who are protesting in China. They're coming together. One of the most oppressive countries, where people are censored and abused for tiny little ridiculous things, breeding all sorts of like mental problems and aggression and all that other stuff, and racism as well. Like, there's people who are protesting in those kind of conditions, whereas here there's like so much more progressive approach and outlook, and yet people aren't taking advantage of that to like really push things forward towards a new change. I saw like a protest not just a few days ago. That's happening in London, and people who are protesting, they sound so apathetic about it too. Like they're doing it, which is great, but they're just like, we want, they're chanting like zombies as well. Like, that's the point of complacency that people have reached. Like, there's absolutely no, there's like no spirit to it at all whatsoever. It's like, yeah, this is like another thing we're supposed to be, zero energy in it, zero frustration, or it's just like totally like helpless sort of frustration. I don't know, man. But yeah, if like people start demanding, like I said, if they have like protest signs that have these things written, like 5 hours max work days, 5 hour max work days, livable wages, progressive education systems, because that's essentially what people are complaining about. Like, oh, it's just like, the education system, people are so stupid, and these people are blah blah blah, and the reason why things are is because these kind of people are that. Improve education systems, pay teachers well, so that they can handle all these classes, give them teacher assistants, have somebody there. It's less, I think kids are less likely to act out when there's like two teachers present to witness what's going on. And to help, actually, not just to witness, but to help as well. If there's a kid that's like lacking or just not understanding something, rather than the teacher having to stop the class and explain it to one student, there could be a teacher there to like come up and explain it, and take their time and make sure the person catches up to it. That's I think a lot better. Doctors get paid a lot because they help people survive, right? People always need that. Teachers are shaping the future that's going to be doing these things as well. But once again, this is how toxic it all is. Capitalism doesn't want that, doesn't want smart students. So they're using these excuses while perpetuating it, because all they care about is money. It's sociopathy. I think I did a lot for this one, for this panel. I think I'm done with it. But yeah, paying teachers livable wages, progressive education systems that actually teach kids things like, problem solving, not just for jobs, but psychologically, when they're coming across some problems mentally or within relationships or families, like classes that talk about relationships, how to interact with people, how to be progressive about conflict resolution. Classes like that can be incredibly helpful, because those kids will end up raising kids and they could pass down this knowledge. So it's going to be generations of people going forward who are going to have better understanding and so on and so forth. You know, if those sort of classes continue, it just gets better and better. But that requires quality teachers who really know a progressive way, not an authoritarian way, not some sort of like Nazi way of problem solving where you gaslight, intimidate, and harass people to get your way, but ways that is mutually progressive, like where both people are gaining something from it, instead of this like disgusting like Nazi valued hierarchical structure that they have going in like fraternities and sororities and all that other stuff. Like that's their way of conflict resolution, is to like mentally shackle people into these subcategories that really don't exist. It's all dependent on education, your environment, you know, what kind of family environment you're in, what kind of education you got, you know, how do they bring you up? That's what it's about. Whereas these like sororities and whatever fraternities, they're all just like buying into this whole Nazi value system of survival of the fittest, man. It's absolute bullshit. Like there's no truth to it at all whatsoever. As I mentioned, it's all based on environment. If kids are brought up in environments where, let's say, the parent isn't a drug addict, you know, or incredibly violent and depressed themselves, where they just like end up pushing that on their kid or taking it out on their kid, they'll probably be more they'll be better in terms of like education and you know, getting things done and being in a healthy state of mind, etc., etc., etc. Or, you know, how it goes like in one extreme or the opposite. Like either they end up being like their parents and they become abusive psychos, or they become the abused and they're, you know, shackled mentally. It has nothing to do with some sort of stupid inherent like alpha beta, man. Like, it doesn't exist. That's just all construct. And people are following it as if though it's like some intrinsical reality, when it really just applies to animals. You know, animals don't have the ability to create supermarkets or to create a government. That's why it's so chaotic, and it's very much about survival of the fittest. Whereas we are capable. We have language, we have ways of traveling through space, we could live in all sorts of conditions. You know, we're not limited to a certain environment like animals are. We have absolutely the capability of being better than such a primitive concept. But because, you know, a lot of these kids come from a generation of that time, that's what's imposed on them. And they're coming from, let's say some of them are coming from rich families who basically exploited people, so they want to perpetuate this basic system so they can have people to exploit to get rich. You know, so there's like all sorts of stuff going on that's incredibly toxic and stupid, and just continues on, you know, from generation to generation until like a generation takes it upon themselves to just really protest and create all these problems for these fascists and those who are just apathetic to it, and start pushing for change until it happens. think in the 60s they tried to do it, but they did it with this idea of like peace and love, which is so easily manipulated by the fascists. You know, they looked at that and they were like, yeah, you know, of course. And they would just try to talk in their language and manipulate them. Out of any of that stuff. And they didn't really have any goals. They weren't set for any goals. It was very, I want to say, idealistic, you know, the whole like peace and, you know, no exact direction, no things to specifically change, I'm going to say. There were groups that wanted to do that. You know, there were a lot of like activists that wanted to have that, but like the general protests, they weren't really focused on that, and a lot of it turned out to be like Woodstock, basically, you know, a really long Woodstock. But we have history to learn from. That's the whole point of it. You know, we could learn the mistakes from there and try to make it a better version, you know, a more effective one. I'm going to spend some time off stream and do a little bit of inking. I kind of miss it, and I actually went back to just using brushes. Like, I'm using a brush, I'm not using this anymore. This tool is useful on the go. It's useful for limited workspace, like if you don't have a desk to put something to like dip the brush in. It's good for that. I don't like how it dries up. You know, it really does dry up very quickly. And washing it or just like cleaning it out, making it functional again, it's a whole thing. You know, it might not, and it's shoddy results. Like, I did clean this out, but because there was some, like, I guess a little bit of water in there, it ended up making the ink kind of, well, more liquidy, and also diluted the intensity of the black. And then eventually it starts to dry out again. So I think it's just better to just dip the brush into fresh ink every time. Cleaning is a lot easier. Like, this is such a small brush, and all I have to do is just clean out this tip, as opposed to like making sure all the inside is cleaned out, all the little compartments that squeeze out the liquid. It's just a lot less steps to get there. All right, next I'm going to be doing this. So I'm going to start out the panel. I don't think I'm going to get too far, but it's supposed to be, I think, a little bit less wide. So I'm going to say it's about this wide. It's the same height. So it's about like, or maybe, yeah, I could do it like this. It's like half an inch away. Look straight. Not bad. I'm trusting my eye. You know, there's definitely a technique to this to make sure that it's accurate. You could just like, you know, like make a mark here, and then at the bottom of this line after you make it, you can make another mark there. Like measure it out to be exactly the same. Let's just say like from point to point. And then do the same thing here, like make that mark. And then just draw and connect the lines, but I'm trusting my vision. It's getting accurate. So I'm gonna create the text box at the top. I'm gonna say this song specifically, but I like it. But it's like rock blues. I'm gonna say like classic rock blues. Kind of curious to know who this is. Black Moon Rising, Go James Sarna. That was pretty good. I got really into it. I'm gonna use the stick figure technique here. It's a lot easier to use the stick figure than to start drawing more complicated shapes and find out things are not right proportionate wise. So I'm gonna do it for both of them. So for those of you who say, I can't draw anything but stick figure, you are going in the right direction. It's very useful. It really is. Like, I'm working on a personal project, like off stream I'm doing something else. And a lot of the silhouettes, you know, little thumbnails that I do before starting the, starting more of like the final version, are through stick figures. Like, a lot of it has to do, like the importance has to do with little things, you know, the placement of the leg, for example. Just a slight change of angle can give it more drama, can give it more action. And, you know, capturing that becomes the next thing. So aside from just proportion, aside from anatomy, aside from, you know, the idea of the entire drawing, there's also all these other elements as well. And the easiest way to capture them or to get a better understanding is through these like really simple forms. So I think people really underestimate the power of stick figures. I have ways to go. On this panel, I think this is going to be a pretty good one. Like, it's going to be pretty challenging. I might have to erase some things because it might be that I made things look too short. But again, because it's in stick figure form, it's a lot easier to do that, to erase, to shift things around, than if I was to, let's say, start doing the next step using basic shapes like cylinder and circle. Like, there's way more at stake there as opposed to just these stick figure lines. So I'm just going to play around with that. But unfortunately, ladies and gents, I am going to have to call it a night for today. But I will absolutely be back again tomorrow. Same time and place for more figure drawing basics. I'm going to be doing the project stream, which is going to be some painting. I'm going to be doing some digital painting, so you guys can check that out. It's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right after figure drawing basics. Throw in some comments, y'all. Throw in some concerns that you got, or some thoughts, some ideas, you know, some perspectives that you have. Let's get a dialogue going. Ask some questions or share your experience. You know, what is currently something that you're working on? What is currently something that you're going through mentally as you're working on improving yourself in drawing? Or it doesn't even necessarily have to be about drawing. As I said, this is a place for thoughts, ideas, and expression. So you guys are open to bring up all sorts of topics here. Alright, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this stream. If you did, just remember to hit the like and subscribe button. They're both greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.